Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this one, we're going to be going through the edge forward position and the cheapies involved. So, a bunch of guys here. It's going to be a little bit interesting as to who you're going to pick in this one. So, we're going to start with Shawn Blore. A fairly simple one with him. Someone who's been picked in the emerging Blues squad. Played a few games last year and scored really well, which we'll come down and have a look. So, having him at 246k, priced him at 18th, which is really great. And there's a chance that he's going to get the starting position on the edge there. So he's fighting with guys like Luke Garner, and he was someone who was in and out of the team and a little bit out of favour last year. So will they share the position? Will Blore get the starting position? We're just going to have to wait and find out on that one. But we'll look at his stats there. That first game of the year he played was round 11, so he got the 33 in 46 minutes. So you can see that was his biggest game of the year in terms of his minutes, and did fairly well there. Then you look in the other ones, and he's very much close to a point a minute or over. So over in this one here, and under slightly in this one, but really happy with his PPM, especially if he's going to be playing on the edge. So obviously most of the edge players, a few extra minutes should lower their PPM a little bit, but really simple with Blore. If he's going to be starting for the Tigers, then you're going to have to pick him up. It's pretty simple. Like, he's someone that's been touted as a gun up and coming player, and what I've learned over the years is that these kind of players will always get a run. There's obviously injuries, a fair few injuries in the NRL, so he'll get his chance at some point in the year, and I feel like he's a great person to have in your squad, especially if he's got the starting position for the upcoming season. So moving on to the next one, we'll go to Riki, Jordan Riki there. Alright, just let it load. Alright, very similar style with him at the moment. He's obviously a little bit more expensive, makes him priced at 26, so with an average of 30 just because he played a few less games last year. But let's have a look at his scores. The most important one for us here is these last two games. So he was able to play 48 minutes and got a try in that one, so obviously inflated stats, but 80 minutes in the second row, getting a score of 50 in that last game of the season. So look over at his stats here. We got 41 tackles for no misses, which is great, with the 2 tackle breaks and 50 meters. So they didn't use him a lot in terms of running the ball, but someone who's very solid in defense. You can see same with the game before, 34 tackles in 48 minutes, which was great for 1 missed tackle. So really good tackle efficiency there. That's probably the most important part of this section with Jordan Riki, and you know, with Dave Fafita leaving, there's an open spot on that edge, and you got to think of guys like TPJ, who they're talking of playing him a little bit more through the middle, as more of a prop and to spell Pat Carrigan, for example, who's tipped to score to average a few less minutes this year. So if Riki comes into that edge position, very similar to Blore, then I think he's going to be a really good option. Price at 26. If he's going to be starting, he might play 80, but even if he plays 60 minutes, you can expect an average of close to 40 in the 60 minutes, which is great. He's going to make a lot of money, a couple $100K, and do very similar to how Blore's going to do, with Blore just being that $100K cheaper with a little bit more upside. So again, with him, a lot of talk about him being a really good player, and he obviously showed that when he played last year in those couple of games. So really good for his fantasy stocks. The only thing we'll say, it looked like when he got the lower interchange minutes there, that he could have some lower scores. So if he's on the interchange, I wouldn't be bringing him in at all. Just something to think about there. Looks like the more he can settle into a game, he will go better. But again, it's hard to tell with these guys that have only played 5 games. Kind of have to pull the trigger on them. But Blore over Riki at this stage if they're both starting. But there's a chance that you can put both of them in as cover, depending on what you think of our next few guys. So we've got Andrew Davey for our next one. So Davey, just that slight bit more expensive at 360, priced at 27 with an average of 29 last year. So he played a few more games, came into the team from round 10, and mainly spent his time on the interchange between mainly around 25 to 30 minutes there. One game at 51 minutes. In that one early on in the season, scoring 27. Okay, 18 tackles. You can see along the way, he's got a fairly decent tackle efficiency. Just those last 2 games of the year where he had a 3 and a 2, but most of the games are 0-1, which is great and what we're looking for. Not big on the meters. 3 runs approximately in 3 to 5 runs in the majority of these games. But our most important one for Davey is looking down at round 19 and 20, where he's actually got the chance to play in the second row for the entire game in one of them and 70 minutes in the other. Biggest one for this one is going to be that first one. So he played 80 minutes and did score 52. And that was only through base stats there. So we had the 34 tackles, no misses, 2 tackle breaks, 2 offloads, and 84 meters, right? Which is perfect. So there's a good chance that this year that he, moving over to Manly, that there's a good chance that he'll get the edge position that Joel Thompson has vacated, which is great for those that are looking to pick him up. Similar to Riki, in the fact that meters gained wasn't huge, but you can see that the tackles there are solid when he does get a bigger role, 25 to 30. You know, it's okay. It's more solid than anything, but does have the tackle break and the offload in his game. So someone that I think, priced at 27, if he gets a start, you can expect him to average probably closer to 40, which again is going to get you some nice price bumps, a good couple 100k, 150 to 200k there to get him up to around 550, which will be really good. But it's going to come down to, are all these guys going to start? Yes, the tip that maybe they're going to start right now, but maybe only 1 or 2 of them do, and they're the ones you want to get in your team. If they're not, then I expect you wouldn't want to be bringing him in. Davey hasn't had the chat about him, as being a superstar like the other two have with Blore and Riki, so he'd be my third choice currently out of this crew. Next one's going to be the interesting one. We have Big Ben Murdoch, which doesn't have any stats on here, which you'll see there. So played in the NRL, played about 60 to 70 matches before he moved over overseas, and played, I think it was around 60 matches there, and did score just over 40 tries. So really a great try efficiency. He scored 7 tries in his time in his approximate 60 matches when he played in the NRL. And what we know from a lot of these guys is they will go okay here. His scores weren't very good at all when he played here, but when he went over there, he did really well. Obviously, got a little bit older. He's just about to turn 30 years old, so he should still have a couple of good years in him. But you can see over here we got 18% of ownership, so a lot of people are tipping him to do really well. My only thoughts are he's priced at 30. Obviously, he's got the dual position with mid and edge, but at 405k, he has to come and start and play high minutes for him to be worth it. Like for me, if he's averaging 35 to 40 and making you a little bit of money, I don't think it's worth it. That's my thoughts at the moment. But there's such an unknown for these guys coming back. Like hasn't been that many guys that come over from England and done really well. Like you think of Graham and these kind of guys, but Murdoch-Masila obviously can score a bunch of tries, and it'll just be interesting to see what happens when he comes over. My preference for him is going to be watching the trials, see how he plays in there, and making my decision close to that if he does get the starting spot. But in that pack, you've got obviously Adam Fanua-Blake now. There's a chance that Masila will play on the edge, but you've got Tohu Harris, guys like Eli Katoa, Jazz Tavanga, and others like Murchie, etc., looking for those spots. So there's a good chance that he'll end up on the bench. So something to think about with Murdoch. There's obviously a lot of people that are asking questions about and raving about him at the moment, but I'm going to wait and see with him. I think a couple of other guys that we've spoken about are in a little bit better position currently, and especially at the price. And when you look at Jackson Ford here, comes in at 440k, a mid and an edge dual position, price is 33 with that same average last year. So obviously got a fair few games, but what we're going to look at here is the total minutes. So at the start here, limited minutes and scored fairly well. With that, got a 41-minute game for 34, then played lock for 2 games, 63 minutes and 65 with 49 and 41. And you look at his stats, there's no attacking stats apart from a couple of tackle breaks, but you can see that he does miss a few tackles when he plays big minutes, right? You also see he does gain a lot of meters, so he's up over 100 in those big minute games for the majority of them, and did score fairly well. But what you're looking at is scores in the mid to high 40s, okay, with a few outliers in there, as you can see with the 27 in 67 minutes. a 50 there, a 39. So you can see the trend that he's going to be up and down. He's just scored 30 with the try in 60 minutes. Okay, but this missed tackles here, you can see up the line there, is really concerning to me, sort of between 3 and 6, even at a game of 8 up the top. So there's a good chance that he's going to get the edge spot. The price at 33, I can see him averaging around 40. And when you're thinking about bringing a guy that's going to possibly go up close to 100k, if you're lucky, right? A lot of things can happen. We always say, oh, these mid-rangers are going to kill it, and then they actually they struggle for a few games and they start losing money, and then you go, oh, what do I do with them? Do I sell them? Do I keep them? And they end up losing their spot. Or there's so many things that could happen. We always just think of the upside, right? But with these types of players in this edge position around the 400k, 450, right? Once they're getting up their price at around that 33, it becomes a bit scary because there's less chance, like less upside, let's say. Yeah, there's less chance he's gonna, even if he averages 45, you're not making a stupid amount of money like you would for someone like Shawn Blore. So I'd be looking at that with Ford. And the games that he did score well, it's in the lock position, so more chance of scoring well in that position. Obviously, he had a really good game at second row, but it did get 6 tackle breaks, 43 tackles in that, right? And 130 meters in that 80-minute performance. Will he get 80 minutes? That's, who knows? He can do it. Obviously, he's played a few games there, but there's 2 games there at 28 and 32. So Jackson Ford's really scary for me. I'm thinking of not having him at this stage. And then we've got one more, guys. Just if you're enjoying the videos, guys, please hit subscribe and the like button if you want to see more. I'm really enjoying making these, and I hope you're enjoying them too. Please ask any questions if you have any. We'll go through our last guy here, Corey. So comes over from the Dogs last year. Obviously had a few issues with Ockenbaugh at the start of the year. He came in and did play a few games. So played every game from round 12, and you can see that the minutes here are sitting between 20 and 30, right? One scary one in there is he did get 75 minutes against the Sharks, and only scored 25. So 27 tackles for 4 misses, and even got a few attacking stats there with tackle busts and offloads, but end up with a penalty and a sin bin. So you might be able to write that off as a bit of an outlier, but if you come down a bit further, where he was able to play 80 minutes or close to it for the Dogs, you can see he's averaging closer to 40, right? He got 100 in one of the games with a double, right? But there's games there with 63 minutes of 58, and there's a mixed bag. There's a couple of 20-minute games and 30s, so yeah, and the list goes on there. He's got a bunch of 50s in a row there, so he's a little bit streaky in terms of he can score a couple of tries and do well for you there. But when he's priced at 23, and if he's going to get the starting edge position, you kind of have to give it to him. Like this is one where I'm talking about your downside is very limited. How often is he going to get 60 minutes, and a bad game's going to be 25, right? And he still makes a tiny bit of money. So he has the upside. He can score 100. He can score a bunch of scores in the 60s, but then he can score the odd 30, right? So again, he's going to make a little bit of money, but the upside's there. If he does get a 60 to 80 minute roll and can average over 40, he's going to make you a couple 100k, right? Which is perfect. And he's not taking up a lot of cap room. He's easy to have on the bench. He's easy to have as a starter. Very similar to blokes like Blore, for example, and Riki, but he has done it, right? He's done it for 4 years now. Scored well in that time. You can see a bunch of really good scores down there too. So he's someone I've got my eye on. He's currently in my squad. In terms of this whole section right now, Corey's in my team. Blore's in my team. Who else we got there? Yeah, they're the only 2 at the moment. I'm thinking with this position is waiting and see. But guys that are a little bit lower in price, I can bring them in, and hopefully they can make a similar amount of money, but aren't taking up the cap space. Can score me close to 40 and have that little bit upside. So that's my thoughts on this position, guys. As I said, please subscribe or hit like if you're enjoying them, and we're going to be bringing these out every day or so until we get all the positions done, and we'll go from there. We'll see you next one, guys. Have fun.